All right, so we're going to break down the Big 12 starting quarterbacks and quarterback battles, ranking them 1 through 16 for the season. I'm going to start off with number 16. So we've got Oklahoma State's quarterback room. We've got Haas Hingie and Zane Flores. I have no idea who's going to come out on top of this quarterback battle. Haven't heard any buzz from Mike Gundy from the offseason on who he thinks is going to be the starter. That'll probably be decided in week one, just trotting onto the field. We'll figure out the starter at that point, I would imagine. That's typical Mike Gundy fashion. I just don't feel good about this Oklahoma State team. So quarterback play uncertain. Team morale is very low. I would say team roster depth is very, very thin. So very low on Oklahoma State. Let's see if they can figure things out with the quarterback. Um, at 15, I've got BYU. Not really sure what's going to happen here. So Jake Retzlaff just recently entered the portal, was dismissed from BYU, and is committed to Tulane. It's a big get for Tulane. He's a great quarterback. BYU is really going to miss him because they just had a five-star quarterback declare 2 years on mission. So he won't be there to be a part of this battle either. So I believe they had three guys they said are currently in the battle for the position. Pull up the names here. I haven't heard of these guys. So we got McKay Hillstead, Trayson Burgett, and Bear Bachmeyer. Bachmeyer sounds familiar, but I don't think it's the same quarterback I'm thinking of. But these guys, you got a three-way battle going into fall camp. It's just there's no telling what's going to happen. So BYU is a good football team. I like BYU defensively for sure. They usually have a good offense, but if they can't figure out quarterback, it's going to be an interesting season for the Cougars. So getting on to number 14, we've got Taven Jackson and Cam Fancher battling out at UCF. I'm not really sure what this is going to look like for UCF. I think both these guys could end up playing, start the season splitting time, but I think Cam Fancher is probably more likable for this offense given his dual threat ability. I think that I think Scott Frost has a lot to prove being back at UCF. This will be a really interesting season. Um, I don't know how they're going to look offensively, but depending on how the quarterback position plays out from this battle, UCF could be kind of a wild card. Not super high on them, but can't count them out with Scott Frost back. I've got at number 13, West Virginia, Jalen Henderson. I believe it hasn't been announced that he's the starting quarterback yet, but transferring in from Texas A&M, I got to watch him play last year. I thought he played some good football. I think he's going to fit Rich Rod's offensive system probably the best, and which is really interesting. You've got Rich Rod going back to West Virginia this year after being absent for so long, leaving the legacy left behind there with Pat White. But him coming back is really big for them. And then you've also got Scott Frost coming back at UCF. So both those quarterback rooms with not big names could end up being bigger names by the end of the season, depending on the level of success that they're able to have. So that would be really interesting. Not super high on them, but Jalen Henderson's one to watch for sure. Number 12, I've got Connor Wegman at Houston, also transferring in from Texas A&M. So Connor Wegman's an interesting story. After watching him play 2 years ago in 2023, which is hard to believe it's been that long, he played some good football. I think people were really high on him going into 24. Played really piss poor against Notre Dame to start the season. That was a tough performance for him, which I think kind of set him back with some injuries as well. And then he was getting jumped in the quarterback battle by Jalen Henderson. Played some really good football down the stretch, and then they had Marcel Reed come in and then just kind of close the door on the quarterback battle at that point in the season. So Connor Wademan has good football in him, I believe, but this Houston offense was dead last in the Big 12 last year and was one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. Houston's usually known for their offense, but after watching that last year, I just have a hard time believing that Connor Wademan's going to be the guy to pull them from last to even middle of the pack. So, unless they were able to pull in a really good transfer class, which I have not been made aware of that yet, I don't see this being a huge pickup for them. I see it being consistency, which is better than what they have with Donovan Smith. So Houston, Connor Wakeman, number 12. At number 11, I've got Caden Salter. So I'm not extremely high on Caden Salter. I think he's got some really solid skill being a dual threat quarterback with a lot of experience coming out of Liberty, but fall off last year with that program and how he played was going to play a big he's got a big role going into this season in Colorado. There's a lot of expectations there. Follow up what Shador just did, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do that. They've got Julian Lewis back there, but I'm pretty sure Caden Salter's going to start. He's got too much experience not to be the starter. He could end up being really good. He could finish top six statistically, but I just don't see that being the case. I think Colorado is not near as deep as they need to be to compete with this league being so just dispersed, and there's so much variety and disparity. There's no telling who can beat who week in and week out. I don't feel like Colorado is going to be able to muster up enough wins, and I don't think like they got the roster to hang in there for enough of these games to make an impact. So, Caden Salter there at 11. I've got Brendan Sorsby at number 10. Now, this is probably one of my more underrated quarterbacks on this list. I really like Sorsby. I think he plays with a lot of moxie. I think he's got a lot of grit, which are two words that people kind of overuse. But I think the guy just needs to cut down on the crazy plays and the turnovers. There was a couple of plays I watched on his film where I was just like, dude, he had such a good game up to that point. To see him do what he did with the football at the end of the game was just like, I know he's trying to make something happen. The team had nothing to lose. They lost a lot of close games, and he played really good football down the stretch. But he had a couple of plays that, if you look back on it, was like, man, if we can cut those out, we're looking good at the quarterback position for sure. So Cincinnati bring back Sorsby. They got some good playmakers on offense. I really do think that Evan Pryor is an underrated player in the Big 12. He's got some serious burst and speed. If they can utilize that position well and get him the football, Brennan Sorsby can get it on the ground and through the air. I think they'll be a little bit better this year than they were last year, but a very tough conference. I don't know that the record will show that. So moving on to number 9, I've got Avery Johnson. I'm sure everybody has Avery Johnson in the top four at least. I got to watch him play against Tulane last year and in person. Small sample size to see, but I watched him miss enough throws to where I just have a hard time seeing this guy being top four with the kind of talent that's in the Big 12 right now. He's a great athlete, but I feel like their offense consists of quarterback power and counter and blast, and they run a lot of very simple concepts passing the football. I mean, maybe some smash concepts or some mesh concepts, but like I just don't feel like this guy has the talent to keep up with some of the rest of the talent in the Big 12. There's just too much depth at quarterback in this league for him to be as high as people are putting him at. Kansas State is always going to be perennially around that 7 to 9 win range, despite the quarterback play they get. So I just don't feel like they really leveled up going with Avery Johnson over Will Howard. I know he left, but if they were able to keep him, I don't feel like they would have. I think they probably would have benefited from that more than letting Avery Johnson start. That's a hot take, though. I don't think many people feel that way. 8, I've got Noah Fifita, Arizona. I love Noah Fifita. I really am going to be interested to see how he plays without McMillan this year. Their offense has been good for a while since he's been there, but their defense is horrific. So they basically feel like they have to score on every drive, I would imagine, which is a huge impact to the quarterback. That makes it really hard to perform at the level you need to. I know Cam Ward felt that last year at Miami with their defense. They have such an elite offense, but just couldn't figure out how to kind of settle into games because I feel like they had to score every drive. So I feel like Arizona's going to be similar. Their offense won't be the same as last year, missing McMillan, even though they had a slump last year. Mainly that was because of defense. If he can cut down on the turnovers and be consistent and find a new primary weapon, I think Noah Fafita could end up finishing in the top half of the quarterbacks in this division. I have a lot of faith in Noah Fafita. I really hope he's able to pull it together this year. I'm rooting for him for sure. Number 7, I've got Jalen Daniels at Kansas. I really like Jalen Daniels, even though I don't. This might be his 9th season, his 8th season. I don't know. He's been here for forever, but he is super fun to watch. Extremely electric running the ball. He's got cannon. He can extend plays that look like they're going to be negative yardage plays, and he can turn them into touchdowns, which is the kind of guys that you want to see. So I really like Jalen Daniels. Just not sure if Kansas is equipped to highlight his skills at the level that he probably can. I think that he's definitely a top third of the conference quarterback, if not top half at least. He could end up finishing in the top 3 statistically. There's no telling Kansas State could win. I mean, Kansas could win 9 games, or they could win 4. And there's so much volatility there with that schedule. But I feel like he'll probably play a good season to finish out his career at Kansas. Lance Leipold, I feel like he's done a great job there. Their offense is fun to watch. Missing Devin Neal is going to be tough for them. But if they can find a run game and open things up with the quarterback run as well, I think that he'll have a great season. In 6, I've got Baron Morton at Texas Tech. I really like Morton. I think he's been pretty consistent for them. I know they've had some rough bouts defensively recently, but they have definitely pursued that in the transfer portal. I mean, their defense is completely overhauled, and offense. They've got a lot of new weapons. There's no telling what this Texas Tech team can do. I'm excited to watch them for sure. I think it's kind of a playoff or Big 12 championship or bust season for them with how far they went with the transfer portal. So I have high hopes for this team. I think Wharton's a great quarterback. I just don't feel like he's the kind of guy that's going to take over a game. But I feel like statistically he's going to put great numbers with this offense. So that's why I've got it at 6. I've got Rocco Becht at number 5. I think this is probably an interchangeable one for me. 4 and 5 are pretty close. I think Rocco Becht probably could get the nod of me at 4, but I think that the guy I've got number 4 might have him on athleticism a little bit, which is why I have him there. But Rocco Becht's missing his top 2 wide receivers. You miss those guys, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, both going to the Texans, my team. That I guess I kind of care about. I don't love the NFL that much, but that's the team I choose to root for. And getting both those receivers was an interesting play from the Texans, but those guys are real studs. They carried that offense for Iowa State last year. Rocco Becht was feeding the ball to these guys. Great route runners, great hands. He's going to miss them a lot. I think that will show. But I think Rocco Becht's got some real energy behind that offense, and he's very accurate. He extends plays when he needs to, and he's consistent. If he can pull off some early wins against Iowa and maybe get into some big conference games and pull off a couple wins, they could be dangerous for sure. But they're going to have to find something at wide receiver to replace what they lost. Number 4, I've got Devin Dampier coming in from New Mexico to Utah with his offensive coordinator. I think this could be either a really, really lethal combo, because if you haven't watched Devin Dampier play football, you need to. The dude's an absolute freak athlete. I think he's very unpolished, but he shows flashes of a similar player to Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. I think he's got a similar profile as a player, but he definitely doesn't have the passing skills that Lamar developed later on. Which, if you remember, it took Lamar Jackson several years to polish that, even into the NFL. But I feel like Dampier, if he's able to put things together at Utah, if they can find some weapons early, he's going to be dangerous. The guy is absolutely electric. So looking forward to watching him play. He's really solid. At number 3, I've got Sawyer Robertson at Baylor. I love the way he played last year. They've got a lot of returning offensive weapons. There's just no telling what Baylor can do offensively. I think the defense is really solid. I think it's going to be better this year under Dave Aranda going into gosh, it's gonna be like year 4 or 5 for him. This is a make or break year for Baylor. They really need to win at least 9 games this season and be in contention for at least the conference championship, if not the playoffs. Kind of building on what they did last year after a slow start. I really like Sawyer Robertson. I think if he can keep gluing with the current weapons that they have and connecting and take the offseason to get better, which is what everybody's trying to do. I think if he can really capitalize on that time, the extra time he's got with his weapons returning, they can be a dangerous unit for sure. Looking forward to watching Baylor. Number 2, we've got Sam Levitt at Arizona State. I think this will be really interesting. They've got one of the top returning wide receivers in the country coming back. That's huge. They've got a loss with Cam Scatterman not coming back. That's going to hurt, but I don't feel like they have the thin depth people think they do at running back. They're returning a couple guys, and they got somebody in the transfer portal. I think they'll be able to run the ball just as effectively this year as they did last year. It just won't be the same kind of play style, kind of hinging all on Cam Scatterman. I think they're going to be spreading the wealth a little bit more. I think Sam Levitt's probably going to play a huge part in the run game as well. I really like Arizona State's offense. I think they're going to be pretty dominant this year. They may drop a game or two because it's the Big 12 and you just don't know what's going to happen, but I really like Arizona State with Sam Levitt. And number 1, I got Josh Hoover. I don't think many people have him at number 1, but I really like Josh Hoover. I think TCU is going to take a huge step forward this season, kind of getting not near what they have with that national championship appearance team. I think they're going to be closer to that than where they've been recently with these really subpar seasons since falling off. I feel like Josh Hoover really showed last year what he can do on this team. They lose Savion Williams to the draft. He went to the Packers. Really, really good athlete, but they've got some really talented receivers. So if Josh Hoover can improve on what he was able to do last year, this team is going to be extremely dangerous, and they're going to put up a lot of points in this conference. So that's my top 16 quarterbacks in the Big 12 from top to bottom. There's just so much volatility in this conference, and any of these quarterbacks could prove me wrong and end up an incredible season, even a Heisman season. I feel like probably the top 12 quarterbacks in this conference have a real shot at finishing in the top five, depending on how everybody else performs. But yeah, really excited for the Big 12. Landon, are you ready to share your top 16 quarterbacks in the Big 12?
Yeah, number 16, I have BYU's quarterback room. There's like three guys that are in contention for that job. The circumstances in which one of them is going to be the starter, unique situation with Retzlaff, all that stuff going down, and then transferring to Tulane. I just don't know how prepared the starter is going to be. Like, I mean, they've only had about a month and a half to prepare for that, so I don't expect much out of that quarterback room. And then at 15, I have Zane Flores for Oklahoma State. They had a really rough year last year with a quarterback that I think is better than Zane Flores. So I don't see much going right for him. That team is just a big question mark, and I would say a big negative question mark. It's really just a matter of like how wrong is this year going to go for them? I don't think he's going to have a great year. And then number 14, I have West Virginia's quarterback room, and that's probably going to be a battle between Jalen Henderson and Nico Marchiol. I'll probably botch the last name, but I think Jalen Henderson will probably end up playing more. I think they have the Nico guy as the starter right now, but it'll probably be split between them both. But I don't expect a ton from them. I think the system they're in is going to be pretty good, but I do think Jalen Henderson has some talent. I mean, you saw that last year at times with A&M, but just big question mark. I mean, that team at West Virginia is completely new this year in a very competitive conference. It could just be there could be some growing pains for either of those guys. Number 13, Taven Jackson transferring in from Indiana to UCF. He had one game he started last year for them against Washington. College game day in town. It was a big game for Indiana, and he played well and they ended up winning. But I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. He can do a little bit of damage with his legs, but I just don't expect a whole lot. UCF is another team that's going to be completely different from last year. Scott Frost returning. A lot of new things coming to that team. And I think Taven Jackson is a decent starter quarterback for rebuilding this team, but I just don't think he's going to be too great. But I mean, with how deep the Big 12 is at quarterback, being 13 out of 16 is like not even that bad with some of these guys after this. Like I really like, I do like Taven Jackson a little bit. I don't like everybody else on this list, but somebody had to be at the bottom. Number 12, I have Kadon Salter transferring in from Liberty. He's going to Colorado. He had an interesting year last year. Liberty kind of fell off, had some very bad losses, and things are just not the same. There was a team that had won like double digit games, I think, 2, 3 years in a row before that, and they went like 8-5 last year or something with him at the helm. I feel like he's a product or was a product of their system. So it's going to be interesting to see what he ends up doing at Colorado. If the offense doesn't suit him well, then I wouldn't be surprised if Julian Lewis gets a lot of play time. But they seem to be rocking with Salter at first. I do think he's a talented quarterback, but we'll just have to wait and see how that exactly pans out. Number 11, Connor Wayman. He transferred to Houston from A&M. He was a starter last year for A&M at the beginning of the year. Kind of had some ups and downs coming off an injury. And Marcel Reed coming in there and taking his job. Really, it wasn't because of him being like terrible. I mean, he wasn't that bad. I think he had one game that was pretty rough, but coming off an injury, it was weird. And then they just decided to go with the hot hand, which is understandable. So Wayman, I do think he's still a solid quarterback and will be useful for Willie Fritz. Houston, definitely an upgrade from last year. They had a few guys last year. The main guy, Zion Chris, just not great. I mean, there's some really bad games. Quarterback play at Houston was just really trash last year. So I think it'll be a breath of fresh air for Houston fans this year. With Wayman, an established solid quarterback there. Number 10, I have Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. He was pretty good last year, pretty good. There were some times where he struggled with turnovers and just weird plays and things, especially some iffy games down the stretch of their season. They were 5-2 and lost their last five to go 5-7. I think he'll have a better year than that, and he'll be more consistent than that. So this year, if he can clean up some of those turnovers he had a season ago, I think some of those close losses they had last year could flip the win. I do expect improvement from him from last season. I think overall they'll have a little bit better of a year. But really from here on out, I think all these quarterbacks I'm about to list are good. And it sucks that like some of them have to be rated like in the bottom half. This conference is just so deep at quarterback. I think it's far more deep than any other conference. And the SEC is the only one that I would think has an argument against it. But anyways, at number 9, I have Noah Fafita from Arizona. Really great season 2 years ago. It's a breakout year for Arizona at the time, winning 10 games with him leading them. And then last year with the whole coaching thing. I believe their coach went to Washington after Bama took DeVore. Uh, Guy they brought in just last year was just weird. Offense was different. Just everything just seemed out of sync. But if that can be different this year, I think Fafita could have a good season. And I think as a talent, he is he's very talented. If you would have asked me to rate the quarterbacks before last year, I probably would have had him in the top like 3. But just because of last year, have to have him down here with like the stats he put up and the way the team performed. But I think this is a guy that could end up having a really good season and end up proving that he deserved to be ranked higher than this. At number 8, Jalen Daniels from Kansas. He's had great highs at Kansas, but also some low lows. Last year was his first year fully healthy, and it was just very weird. Some people were saying that the offense, like the way they were calling it and utilizing him, was just not well done. But I do expect that to be taken care of better this year, so maybe he can show his strengths better throughout the course of this upcoming year. I do expect some improvement there. And from Kansas as a whole, they were a team that had a lot of expectations going into last year and just didn't live up to any of them. Went 5-7. They did pick up a few teams in some upset games at the end of the year, but overall, just a brutal year. Not a great year for Jalen Daniels, but I do think in his like 20th year in college now, he's going to put it together. Number 7, I have Devin Dampier. He was at New Mexico last year, coming to Utah this year. Absolutely electric player. If you haven't got a chance to see him play before, like I feel sorry for you, but you're going to see it this year. He's coming over to Utah with his offensive coordinator. I think this is a guy who's going to put up some crazy stats, especially on the ground. Um, just a really fun player. Really excited to see how he's utilized there and what that looks like. And hopefully his talent can translate over to the Big 12. I think it will. And it's a pretty open, competitive conference. I think he'll be able to showcase what he can do pretty well. So number 6, I have Avery Johnson from Kansas State. I also got to see him play in person last year and was underwhelmed. Just missing a lot of throws and stuff, but he's a player that's really volatile. He can be when he's not on, he's terrible. When he is on, he's really good. And Kansas State as a team, I expect them to be a little bit better than last year. And I think he will too, just a little bit more consistency. He's a player I feel like will improve every year, just getting older and getting more experience. So I expect a little bit better things from him this time around. But he's a talented player, just gonna be more accurate with the ball. That'd be the best thing for him. So I think he will have a solid year. At number 5, I have Josh Hoover from TCU. This is a guy that was slinging the ball all over the field last year. He ended up finishing 7th in college football in yards last year. Threw a lot of touchdowns, but he did have an interception problem. He threw 11 interceptions last year, so that's kind of an issue for me there. But I do think he's a very talented player and a good quarterback. But I like these 4 guys above him a little bit more just because they haven't been as turnover prone as he has over these last several years. But these next 5, or him and these next 4 are really all similar. It's tough to rank them all. But at number 4, I have Baron Morton from Texas Tech. Morton last year was kind of an up and down player, but he ended up putting together solid stats. And with the team he's going to have around him this year, I think he's going to absolutely go off. This is the most talented Texas Tech team probably since Michael Crabtree and like Graham Harrell there. So I think he's going to have a lot of success. He's going to have a lot of guys to throw the ball to, a lot of help on that team. I think he'll have a great season there. Number 3, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor. Originally from Mississippi State, unfortunately, he never got to do much there, but he really had a coming out party last year at Baylor. The starters last year was supposed to be dude from Toledo. I can't think of his name.
Daquan Finn, right?
Yeah, Daquan Finn was supposed to be the starter, but that just never really got off the ground. And Sawyer Robertson took over and had a really good year. He ended up finishing 7th in college football in QBR last year. quietly under the radar. There was a team that started off 2-4 and then rattled off 6 wins in a row to finish 8-4. I think they're going to have a really good year this year, and Sawyer Robertson will too. They have a very manageable schedule. I would not be surprised if this is a team that ends up in the Big 12 championship or maybe even the playoffs. At number two, I have Rocco Beck from Iowa State. He led them to a great year last year. I got to see him play in person in the Big 12 championship last season. Not the best game there, but it was just a tough one. Their defense got just ran over by Arizona State. Just wasn't much they could do in that game.
Yeah, specifically Cam Scattergood.
Yeah, Cam Scattergood just dominated their defense. But I think he's a really good quarterback. I watched him play a good bit last year. Clutch player. Doesn't turn the ball over too much. Just a smart quarterback. And Iowa State's going to have some question marks at wide receiver this year. So that could possibly hinder him a little bit. But as far as like talent goes, I like him right here. I think he'll be able to make whatever they have work well enough for them to win at least 9 games or more this year. So I think that he's going to be good. And at number one, Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Just a crazy good year last year out of nowhere. I mean, this was a dude nobody knew about. Transferred from Michigan State and played like almost none over there. Nobody thought anything of him. I remember State playing them last year in week 2. I mean, I had no idea who the dude was, and he was just him and Cam Scattergood were just cooking us, and I was like, who are these nobodies just destroying our defense? And then turns out they ended up being 2 of the better players in college football last year. I think Levitt this year is gonna have a really good year. He's got Jordan Tyson at wide receiver 1 for them. He is very, very good. I think that duo is going to be among the best in the nation. I think they're going to have another great season led by Levitt. That's my thoughts about the quarterbacks in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think Sam Levitt's going to be an interesting watch. Having Jordan Tyson and Xavier Gilroy back, that's 2 really good receivers. When Gilroy came in for Jordan Tyson, I mean, I watched him play in the Big 12 championship too, and he was a really key player in that in the passing game. Sam Levitt's legs played a big part in that, with Cam Scattergood also playing a huge part on the ground and in the passing game, whether he was throwing or catching the ball. Dude could literally do it all. He's a beast. Gonna miss watching him, but yeah, I think Sam Levitt's definitely gonna be one to watch of all these guys. I think he's got the best ceiling. I like Josh Hoover a lot just because I think TCU is kind of underrated, and I think they bring back some good receiver production, but ASU's probably got the most solid team returning, and he could probably end up putting on a Heisman caliber season if he ends up being anywhere near what he did last year. So looking forward to talking about these quarterbacks more. This conference is just so loaded at this position, and we could talk about it for hours. So just a little in-depth breakdown of these quarterbacks, but we couldn't do it justice. This is definitely probably one of the hardest lists we're going to have to do. But yeah, that's it for the Big 12 quarterback list.